Let's talk about the economic situation in the country. Let's take a look at businesses. Let's take a look at the commercial activities in Nigeria as business activities continue to impact the lives of millions of Nigerians, especially under the current economic situation, offering access to social and economic opportunities as well as creating a pathway for prosperity in Nigeria. However, the actions of business enterprises can affect human rights, and those most affected are often among the millions of vulnerable of Nigerians at the moment. This morning on the program, we'll take a look at mainstreaming respect and for human rights in business activities in Nigeria. And to help us navigate these issues, we have joined us on the program the Director General of Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Agabaidu Jideani Chukwuemeke. Best. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Mr. Jideani is a human rights lawyer and a governance, risk and compliance professional, and is a member of the Governing Council of the National Human Rights Commission. He's also the practice lead at Best Fredericks LLP, a multidisciplinary law firm based here in Abuja. A man with so many hats. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Right. First and foremost, let's just talk about your feeling of where we are right now as a country. There are a lot of Nigerians, and I suppose you've listened to some of the comments during our interactive session where Nigerians are, obviously aggrieved by the direction of the country right now. As someone who understands or has a vantage point of view, so to say, in looking at, how things are unfolding, understanding where the government is coming from, understanding what the people are saying, give me your point of view on the state of affairs.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, the analogy I use from time to time is that of someone who gets into a property and the roofs are leaking,
right,
and he gets into that property during the rainy season. Of course, you must be wet. Your property, your goods, your stuff will get wet because it's raining and your roofs are not made up. But the problem will be if you now decide to remove the roof entirely. So that's where you get a problem. So the hand that was dealt the current President Tinubu and his regime was a tough one. The country was in serious difficulty by the time the president came into office. And so it is expected that the difficult impacts will be met on the people. However, the decisions and policies that the president and his regime has taken in some areas have been helpful, and in other areas have not been so helpful. So the impact on the people had worsened, somewhat. And the truth be said, it will be difficult for anybody who becomes president at the time His Excellency President Tinubu took over power to deal with the issues he's faced with. So all we are seeing now are impacts based on cumulative difficulties, cumulative bad decisions taken over a period of time. So we only ask that the government will look at it properly and ensure that the cushions are there to help the citizens pass through this difficult phase.
And do you think, from what we've seen so far, in a few weeks' time, the administration is going to clock a year in office? I know most Nigerians are going to zero in on his performance as far as this year is concerned, even though there's a lot of history, there's a lot of context that goes beyond his 1 year in office. A lot of it had to do with the Buhari administration. Some of it had to do with the Goodluck administration. Some of it as far back as even the Obasanjo administration, for instance, when we talk about power and all of these other unending issues. But give me a sense of whether you think we're attaining equilibrium from what the government is trying to do and the impact it is having on the lives and the livelihood of the people.
We are not close to equilibrium. That is the truth. We are not close to equilibrium. The president has taken very courageous decisions. For instance, everybody agrees that there should be deregulation in the oil and gas sector. He has done that. The impact was heavy, immediately very heavy on everybody. And there are other issues. The president has tried to rein in banditry and insecurity. This is, a very good step. But so many taxation, multiple taxation, in an attempt to bring in as much revenue as possible. The regime has really hit very hard on the most vulnerable of the society. So I think they have to have a rethink in that direction.
And in talking about the impact, businesses have, for the most part, and you would understand it this greatly, been folding up. We've seen multinationals pack up and leave. They say, listen, it doesn't make sense business-wise to stay and operate in Nigeria anymore. Local business have been dealt an even bigger blow, because we've seen some of these businesses fold up in the manufacturing industry, for instance, job losses and so on and so forth. I mean, it's a trend that has been happening for quite some time now. Give me a sense of, especially when we're trying to juxtapose this conversation with human rights, for instance. What's your impact assessment on what this has done to, compound the situation?
The greatest problem we have, we know you spoke about equilibrium. The greatest problem we have is the volatility. There is no stability. When we look at our currency, for instance, there is no stability. There is no certainty as to what will happen tomorrow. So it is very difficult for businesses to plan. You plan for infrastructure, you plan for raw materials, you plan for finished products, and you find out that as you're making purchases for Monday, you're unable to make at the same rate on Tuesday. So it is very difficult. So people have to shut down because you don't know how you can keep going unless there is certainty, unless there is equilibrium, as you call it. So that stability has to be there, even if at a high rate. But let there be stability. Let people know this is what we can do today, and this is the result that we expect tomorrow.
And how do you protect businesses and also ensure that people are not taken advantage of? Because we've seen a lot of price gauging. We've seen a lot of people attempt to game the system, whether it's PMS, whether it's price of commodities. We've seen the FCPCC attempt to address that. The pricing crisis itself is something that is further aggravating Nigerians and their position on whether things are working or not. What is your take on how we're managing the situation so that the people don't feel like the system is being taken advantage of and is also counting on on them on a regular basis, especially when we talk about the pricing situation in the country?
Business is rooted in confidence, and confidence is destroyed when right-thinking people go about saying, we don't know what will happen tomorrow. So it's lack of confidence in the system. The man who has spent money at the rate of 120 to the dollar, for instance, and now he's seeing that the dollar has gone to 140, he's unable to continue on that same trajectory. He has to find a way. If there is no legitimate system available, he will go illegit. That is what has happened. And the response has been knee-jerk and panicky. There is no point going to throw open people's warehouse. There is no point going to shut down productive resources because you think they have inflated their prices. It will happen, but the water will eventually find its level. It will happen because it is a response based on lack of confidence. Let me give you an example. If somebody hears, for instance, that there is going to be fuel scarcity, a person who ordinarily does 25 liters of fuel in his car will quickly go and do 50 liters. Why? Because he's panicky, because he doesn't know where he will get fuel, because there is a loss of confidence in the system. So that is what has happened to the price regime. People want to get as much income as possible to be able to afford to continue to stay in business.
And where does the concept of human right come into this conversation? Because profit is to business operators as winning an election is to a politician. All they want to do is to make their profit. How do you square that with human rights, for instance, and doing the right thing by the people?
Yeah, that is the in thing now. You know, in 2023, I think, or 2022, President Buhari approved the Nigerian National Action Plan for Business and Human Rights. So originally, business people don't care about human rights. Their concern is to do business, make profit, reinvest, and keep going. But the trend has changed. You have to take care of your workers. They have rights. The Constitution has a plethora of rights for Nigerian workers and residents who are not Nigerians. So it's something that we are encouraging businesses to get into. They have a duty to respect human rights while carrying out business activities. That's what the Abuja Chamber of Commerce is trying to foster. We have developed a guideline along with the National Human Rights Commission and the SMEDAN, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, to ensure that we bring this to the front burner and get businesses to understand that doing right by human rights pays. It's a good thing for business.
And if you can break it down, what necessitated this action plan, for instance? What are we trying to address here? What are the challenges and what are we trying to fix?
Okay, we have a long history of business and environment clashing. We have the issues of oil spillage in the Niger Delta. We have issues with the hydropower development companies. And we have been at the receiving end of even human trafficking and forced labor in big corporations doing businesses in Nigeria. So we are already ripe for this before the UN made it a bit mandatory for people to try and see that businesses respect human rights. We have problems where a big oil corporation in the Niger Delta will engage security agencies to hunt down activists. So these are issues that we have seen. These are issues that impact on us and on our people. And President Buhari, former President Buhari, found it very interesting to ensure that we have this action plan.
And as far as moving the needle is concerned, where are we right now with implementation? Because again, like the typical Nigerian situation, the legislations are there on paper, but when it comes to implementation, I mean, the gap is just so wide. Where are we? How far have we moved the needle from 2022 to date?
It's work in progress. First thing is creating the awareness that workers have their rights. The labor unions have been pushing this for long. But what we have done at this moment is to, with the leadership of the Human Rights Commission, I am Dr. Tony Ojukwu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and his team. They have moved us from where we were at the back to being on the path to progress. We are not yet there, but we are on the path to progress. The action plan has been developed, stakeholders have been mapped, and the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and the Human Rights Commission have also set up a center for business and human rights. This center has developed the guideline as I spoke about alongside SMEDAN. SMEDAN has a wonderful chief executive, Dr. Odi, who is doing well himself too. So we are moving. What we need to do is also to begin to think about self-regulation so that businesses will regulate themselves with this their duty to respect human rights. It's not just to respect human rights, it's also to make available opportunities and platform for grievance resolution, dispute resolution. So where somebody feels that the rights have been violated, he could see a place where to go and ventilate his grievances and have it settled. So we have at the Chamber of Commerce in Abuja, the Dispute Resolution Center, which is being chaired by a very, very resolute and intellectual-minded senior advocate of Nigeria, Prince Kayode, who was a former minister. So we have that center. to help in this issue of resolving violation of human rights. So we are really moving.
Yeah. And what do you say to people who say this is just a duplication of effort, or in fact even an attempt to usurp the powers of the judiciary, because they do have the constitutional right to adjudicate some of these matters that could equally end up in court, for instance, where the constitution is very clear about the rights of people, Nigerians or non-Nigerians alike. What do you say to that?
What we are trying to do and what we have been doing is supportive of the judiciary. The courts are overwhelmed with so many issues. The docket is full. So what we do is that we offer a fast track to settlement for citizens, for commerce people, for business people, for government institutions and organizations in support of the judiciary, not.
So it's complementary.
It's complementary. Yes, that's the word. It's complementary.
And let's talk about the business community. How receptive are they to this, new push to address these, area of concern, for instance? Do you have their buy-in? What has been the response from industry players, for instance?
The response has been positive. It's something that businesses already know. The National Action Plan is a regulation. Businesses in Nigeria has from a long time ago committed to be compliant with laws and regulations. So they all know that this regulation is something that has to be complied with. Why I keep talking about compliance is that we don't want it to be enforced. So we don't want enforcement. So we are voluntarily complying. So what we are trying to do further is to ensure that there is no need to invite the state to intervene by ways of enforcement. So businesses are interested and businesses are welcoming to the framework we have developed in the Chamber of Commerce.
And give me a sense of the scale of the problem here, or the scale of the challenge, and what a success would look like going forward into the future.
The challenge is huge, in the sense that Nigeria is a huge nation. We have very, very big population. And with that large population comes issues of unemployment. So the greater challenge is convincing the people to understand that they have a right. The fear is that if I try to pursue my right, I may lose my job. So it becomes, do I just let this slide and allow food to be on the table? But what we are promising the people is that you will not lose your job. The businesses are ready to work with you. The Chamber of Commerce is working with the Human Rights Commission and SMIDAN and even the Bank of Industry to ensure that these rights are highlighted. The necessary trainings and capacity enhancement, will be done. And then the protective mechanism of fast-track dispute resolution is in place. So we are really moving in the right direction.
And what about awareness, and to the greater members of the public who are perhaps hearing about this action plan, for instance, for the very first time? What would you like them to know? What are some of the takeaways where people can actually explore these frameworks that are readily there to help Nigerians understand what is applicable and how some of these issues can be addressed, for instance?
Yeah, we still have a lot of work to do with awareness. Most people on the streets don't know. Even employees sometimes loath to take advantage of these opportunities. So I think we need to work harder with regards to public awareness. And that's where people like you, the media, comes in, so that we can take this to the living rooms of Nigerians.
And looking at where we are right now, where businesses are scratching their heads, dealing with the new electricity tariff, dealing with cost of production, Nigerians groaning about inflation and things like that, I reckon this is not a good time to have to deal with all of these things, because businesses are struggling to stay afloat. People are struggling to keep their jobs. People are struggling to put food on the table. Just give me a sense of...
No, this is the best time. this is the best time. Right. Oh yeah, this is the best time. Because what respect for human rights does is that it gives you a happy workforce. It provides a conducive environment for people to look at the difficulties they are passing through and say, yeah, but you know, these people treat us with dignity. So we are going to sacrifice a bit for them because they have respect for us. So this is actually the best time to begin to implement respect for human rights.
Human rights, and for some Nigerian workers, I guess, you know, they're listening to this program, they're saying, listen, our minimum wage has already expired. We don't have a new minimum wage yet. We don't know when it's going to come. In the grand scheme of things, can you just paint a picture of some of the gaps that exist right now and how Nigeria is apparently playing catch up to the rest of the world, where things like this, for instance, almost happen automatically because the systems are there, or there is this sense of commitment to always addressing issues like this in time?
It's a difficult one because the first right is the right to a living wage.
Right.
You need to be paid a living wage. And I must commend the government of President Tinubu because they are listening and they are also working towards arriving at maybe not so much of a living wage, but augmenting what, you know, the position where our workers are. The truth is that we are a poor nation. We have not realized that. We have not.
Okay, poor in what sense? Qualified? Because I think a lot of Nigerians right now will be triggered to say poor. I don't think we're poor by any stretch of the imagination. When you say poor, what do you mean?
We are
exactly?
poor because we are, because of the errors of several past leadership. We have become impoverished. So at this moment we are poor. We have potentials to be rich, but we are poor. We have not worked on those potentials. We have not tried to transform ourselves. We have arable land that could feed us. We have human resources, immeasurable human resources in Nigeria. We are a gifted nation. But at the moment we are poor. As I am, I'm not able to do things for my children that my father was able to do for me when I was their age. So we have progressively become poorer. What we are saying is that at this moment we should realize that we are poor and then cut our ostentatious living, cut out a couple of things that we do because we pretend to be rich. So that's where we are. We need to first of all get a living wage. But how do you get a living wage? If you have a currency that is losing value every day, you need to get stability. We need to become productive. We need to begin to use our resources to do things that will help us to get away from the depth of poverty where we are to a stage that we are able to manage our resources. For instance, we have a large population of young people in Abuja who are waiting for government to provide employment for them. And we said it's not going to happen. That is the truth. Government can no longer take care of everybody. People should begin to take care of themselves. So we are trying to get to the FCT minister so that we can establish in each of the area councils vocational places where we can train welders, where we can train mechanics, where we can train people that will be doing carpentry, where we can train electricians, where we can train masonry, where we can train people to take care of farming. When we try to do, I have a couple of properties, and when I go to see the people who are working, I hear them say, no, I'm bringing somebody, a tiler from Togo, because they do better work than our tilers. Why should a Togolese be the one doing the work in Abuja and I'm paying? I'm earning my money in Abuja and I'm paying a worker in Abuja and I'm paying somebody from Togo. Why should that be? Because our young people have not sat down to take the pains to learn the trade. Right. So we have told the minister give us spaces where we can establish these vocational training facilities for people to learn. People come and say, the first thing they tell you in Abuja is that mechanic is not good. I came to Abuja from Lagos. One of the first things I was told is that the mechanics are not as good as you expect them. Why should that be?
Right. As long as there is a demand, there should be a need to have the proper skill set to address those demands, because that in itself will also create the necessary business environment to actually push the needle in the right direction. But I suppose the key point is all of this is work in progress, and we're moving in the right direction.
We are.
Okay.
Definitely.
We're going to have to end the conversation here for now. I have a feeling that we'll circle back to discuss this and many more other developing issues as far as developments in this area is concerned. But thank you most kindly, as always, for at least giving us the opportunity to speak to you on this issue of mainstreaming businesses as well as human rights, talking about the action plan. The Director General of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Chukwuemeke Bez Jideani Agabaidu. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much. I'm happy, and I will come back again.
Okay, looking forward to that. And of course, that is it for the conversation this morning.